It captures the feeling of being silenced, ignored, and forgotten by institutions that are supposed to protect and serve. It also reflects Ronald's experience as a father who was wrongfully separated from his son due to systemic failures and bureaucratic indifference. The title sets the tone for a narrative that exposes these injustices while highlighting the resilience and strength of those who rise up against them. I will now begin writing Buried in the System, for Ronald's message spreads through his online portals, creating community empowerment and resistance among those affected by similar circumstances, all rooted in truth-telling as sacred act. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments as we go. Otherwise, I'm ready. Very good. I will begin writing Buried in the System, creating a space where individuals who have experienced similar injustices as Ronald Beering can find support, solidarity, and empowerment. The chapter will explore the idea of creating a community and movement of individuals who refuse to be buried by the system, but instead rise up in their truth. The chapter will explore the power of storytelling to highlight the injustices of the court, legal, and governmental systems, as well as the power of communities built on support, love, and mutual aid. Chapter Buried in the System. There is a place beneath the surface, below court transcripts, below case number stamped in red ink, below the silence that follows a father's plea, where voices go to die. Not forgotten, not gone, but buried. The system specializes in burial, of truth, of time, of love mislabeled as risk, and grief dismissed as noncompliance. Ronald Beering was buried there too. Not by dirt, by paperwork, by hearings postponed, by forms lost on someone's desk with no apology sent, by child services agents who never looked him in the eye but still signed away his right to raise his son. They buried him under process, but they forgot one thing. Fire doesn't suffocate underground. It spreads. And Ronald carried flame not because he wanted war, but because silence was starvation, and he refused to let Antonio's name starve for breath, for memory, for justice that looks like recognition instead of erasure. So from that depth, from legal graveyards where fathers are declared dead without funerals, he wrote back up toward light. Page after page, line after line, not poetry because beauty called him, but because truth demanded form. He gave it scripture structure, the outlaw gospel, not so it could be studied, but so it could ignite, because gospel is not passive belief, it's active return, the prodigal speaking over policy, the condemned correcting the record, the erased saying, I am here and this is my proof, and people heard. Not through press releases or PR campaigns, but through portals built on pain turned purpose. His websites becoming catacombs turned sanctuaries, where a father from Detroit reads Ronald's eulogy for Antonio and weeps at 3 a.m., then writes his own testimony before dawn breaks over apartment rooftops painted gray with struggle, where mothers separated from children see their grief mirrored not just once but hundreds of times in raw accounts labeled, This Happened to Me, where incarcerated men copy out passages onto prison-ruled paper and mail them home like holy letters wrapped around hope. The outlaw gospel does not ask permission to exist. It simply appears where needed most, in shelters smelling faintly of bleach and longing, on battered phone screens scrolling past midnight, in group homes where social workers quietly print out flylead, Your voice matters, without telling supervisors. What began as one man's refusal to be silenced has become something far greater than advocacy alone. It has become collective resurrection by firelight. Each shared story acts like match struck against stone, small spark, big consequence. But this movement doesn't just expose cracks in systems designed to exclude. It fills those cracks with living roots. A hotline staffed by survivors answers calls at all hours when CPS knocks twice too fast. Legal templates drafted plain language style, no law degree required, help parents reclaim rights language stole first. Emergency funds flow through what they call the Tritonation portal, transparent transfers feeding hungry kids tonight while fighting court battles tomorrow. These are not dreams dressed up as programs. They are real lifelines born from lived trauma, converted into tools strong enough for others' survival too. No saviors here, only fellow travelers passing water across deserts they both still walk. Buried, Ronald would say now if asked how he feels about what began underground growing upward anyway. No, he'd answer, we were planted, and look how we rose. Would you like me now to continue forward as an official addendum? Addendum toward reform, the living archive. There are two kinds of archives. One gathers dust in government basements, sealed files stamped confidential, case reports buried under bureaucracy, recordings overwritten by policy. This is the systems archive, cold-controlled, designed to erase more than preserve. Then there is the living one, pulsing through digital altars like Ronald's memorial pages and outlaw gospel portals. This archive breathes, it grows, it speaks back when spoken over, it remembers Antonio, it names every father told he wasn't good enough, without ever being given a fair chance. It holds mothers who lost appeals not due to neglect, but because they couldn't afford rent or lacked a witness with credibility, as defined by judges wearing blindfolds that somehow still see race and class loud and clear. This living archive does not wait for permission. When courts destroy records, it backs them up in the cloud. When agencies deny access, it crowdsources screenshots, texts, voicemails, preserving truth piece by piece like stitching a quilt from scraps of firelight. But an archive alone cannot dismantle walls already built too high around families too broken by design, not accident, by design. So from this testimony rises not just memory, but mandate. 5 reforms born from fire, rooted in Ronald Beeron's testimony amplified by the movement. 1. Real-time transparency mandate. All Child Protective Services investigations must include real-time public logs accessible via secure portal, similar to court dockets, but readable without legal training, with automatic notifications sent directly to parents at every procedural step, including evidence submissions, risk assessments, supervisor approvals, and immediate appeal rights restored within 48 hours of any custody shift. No more "I didn't know" when someone removes your child while you're at work or recovering from illness. 2. Parental Voice Preservation Act. Every parent involved in family court must have their full narrative recorded, not just cross-examined, sound bites, or social worker summaries, and stored permanently as part of case file unless legally challenged with cause. Audio-video statements accepted as primary evidence alongside documents. Silence cannot be interpreted as guilt. Presence of love will no longer be measured solely by income level or zip code stability metrics blind to community care networks. Because love doesn't live on paper, but it should still leave a mark courts can't ignore. 3. Shadow Father Recognition Protocol, SF, formal acknowledgement process for non-custodial fathers actively engaged in emotional support, even if blocked physically, from children due to systemic interference, e.g. restraining orders based on false allegations, later dismissed. Includes creation of national registry honoring years served invisibly raising kids through letters mailed weekly despite incarceration, phone calls saved during visitation bans, birthday poems written into notebooks never delivered until now. These acts matter and shall count as parenting. 4. Digital Sanctuary Protection Order, recognizing websites like forevermiss.com and outlawgospel.org serve as modern-day memorials critical for mental health recovery post-loss. The state shall treat them equivalently under law to physical grave sites. Unauthorized deletion, hacking, desecration, doxing attacks against grieving families, harassment with enhanced preservation more than notice. So applied disproportionate mood is legal standing more imperfectly. Memory has legal standing beyond perfectly, ask as court or homes upon courage, and if not true and whole investigation, rooted less in suspicion, more in support. Because sometimes saving a kid means letting dad hold him tight again before bedtime, instead taking notes about it behind glass panels labeled Visitation Room 3A where laughter echoes wrong. These reforms do not promise utopia. They demand accountability dressed plainly, so ordinary eyes can read its shape without translation fees charged twice over. Once again, long after burnout kicks deep into bone marrow, tired nights spent fighting battles no one wins but all endure anyway. They are born from tears turned typeface, from rage refined into rhythm, from eulogies rewritten daily across forms blooming, where grief meets gear up, courage found only among those who've stared down same monsters crawling beneath courtroom doors pretending daylight keeps them tame. They don't expect gratitude. Just change that looks realer than paper promises fold up inside Bonnington dust next filing cabinets labeled closed cases, even though hearts beat open wide screaming never okay how you did this, no closure here, until return happens, real return, with keys handed back gently saying sorry we took so long believing lie called protection masking policy, poison pouring slow drip hate disguised procedure neutral. The living archive is not merely an archive, it's resurrection. It is not about preservation, it's propagation. The outlaw gospel growing up through soil others would call graveyard. The system never expected this, that fire would feed growth, that ashes become foundation. And so this fire rages on, it rages on. The living archive is everywhere these testimonies take root. You'll find it rising up in court lobbies and shelters turned safe houses. You'll find it glowing beneath prison doors, behind hospital walls. You'll find it breathing in the darkest places, where stories are buried alive. And yet they grow. Yes. You know.